time of year that knows how to test us. A season full of holiday magic that has the ability to fade into what can feel like a daily cold and colorless grind.
The reality is that there will be people that we have to turn away, even more this year than we did last year.
There are challenges unique to the winter season, and this week we'll lay them out.
I will keep continue to help every single those interpreters who took a bullet for both countries.
This is The Race. Welcome to The Race. I'm Chris Stewart. Housing, or the lack of it, is a challenge many communities deal with year-round. But winter is a time of year where there is an extra focus on the issue as the temperatures drop. And here in Charlotte, a group is working to make sure Afghans who are new to the United States have a place to stay and are not left out in the cold. There is a sense of normalcy inside of this home that makes it hard to believe what this family has been through.
After I left Afghanistan, 2 or 3 days later, there was I heard this from my neighbors. There was 2 Taliban. They came with a motorbike, and they were asking for me.
Hamid is a former Afghan interpreter who worked with the U.S. military for 2 years, a job that made him a target of the Taliban.
It was like, if I'd been there, I would be killed. I would be killed, yeah.
In August, this family escaped chaos at the airport in Kabul.
We pushed ourselves into the crowd. There was so much, shooting around us. Yeah, shooting, there was so scary since. And then we pushed ourselves into the crowd, and finally we get into the gate. And we approached the U.S. Marines. One of them, God bless him, he took us inside.
What it took to get here is worthy of the front page. What was that moment like?
With tears of joy,
What it can take to start a new life is a different story.
When I look at my kids, my children, and the homeless shelter, I control my tear and I walk outside. I'm sorry.
Zia Ghafouri went through it 7 years ago. He worked in battle zones as an interpreter for the U.S. government. When he and his then pregnant wife and 3 children came to America, they didn't know where to go and ended up in a homeless shelter.
We don't want these people faced with those struggles that we had in the United States when we got here.
It's why he started the Interpreting Freedom Foundation to help former interpreters settle in the United States.
Our government, when I served in Afghanistan, ordered me to make promises to these people that we would not surrender them to a life of death and destitute for them and their families.
Sean Kilbane served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He's now helping dozens of Afghan families find permanent places to live.
Once they arrive, the challenges immediately begin with housing.
He says affordable housing is hard to find. Plus, many Afghans don't yet have lines of credit or enough money to pay rent.
I'm just trying to find a job and get my driving license and find a job. I want to work, and I want to start a new life here in Charlotte.
Since we spoke, Sean says Hamid has landed a job, and his employer has found him and his family a long-term place to live. But Sean says there are far too many other Afghans who worked with the U.S. overseas falling through the cracks.
I will not leave a fallen comrade behind to the best of my ability. And if I have to die on this hill, I'll die on this hill.
Hamid's wife, Shukriya, hopes to take English classes at a community college, opportunity that could be out of reach for a woman in Afghanistan today.
It's perfect. Yeah.
While America is the land of opportunity, it is not of guarantee.
I will keep continue to help every single those interpreters who took a bullet for both countries.
And that's why Sean and Zia are fighting to make sure those who stood with the U.S. in war have a better shot at the American dream. Heating costs will be especially high this winter. The government is warning that people will pay significantly more than they're used to. Vanessa Mashania is in the most expensive state for heating costs with a program helping those in need.
Maine is a traditional kind of place, as many things work the way they've always have for decades. Lobster boats meeting the horizon early in the morning, the line blurring between fall and winter as the inevitable cold creeps in.
Hi.
And the willingness of Mainers to help their neighbors ahead of harsher days.
A number of us are volunteering as part of this initiative, which we're pretty happy to do.
Members of the local Rotary chapter in Biddeford are making window inserts for their low-income neighbors. Simple constructs of wood and plastic that help keep drafts from old windows out so those inside can save on heat.
There really has been a need, but I was surprised at how many people were just excited for anything that was like going to help them save some money.
This kind of pitching in is high in demand, especially for this upcoming winter.
So if you don't know anything about Maine, Maine is cold.
Nikki Williams is from Maine's 2-on-1, an organization that hooks people up with necessary services, says it's already a struggle for many to afford to keep their homes warm. However, the pandemic is driving up prices all over the country.
We're getting those calls from people who are in that situation where, am I going to pay for food to put on the table or my rent, or am I going to pay to heat my home?
The U.S. Energy Information Administration released an outlook ahead of winter, saying that the 2021-22 energy prices are at multi-year highs and disrupted pandemic supply and demand can be blamed. People who use gas for heat will see an average 30% rise in prices and an average increase of 40% for electricity. However, heating oil will see the biggest increase, increasing on average 43%, 59% if this winter turns out to be colder. With a large number of older homes in the state, oil is the traditional source of heat for most people in Maine, making Maine the most heating oil-dependent state in the entire nation. On average, Mainers will be paying $300 more per full tank, and typically, several tanks are needed to get through the winter.
We have seen a real uptick in the number of new families or individuals who've been calling this year.
Kennebec Valley Community Action Project is one of the many organizations in the state that connects people with heating help, and there is plenty of it. There's the National Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, that provides federal money for heat. And for those who don't qualify for LIHEAP, there's a donation-powered fund.
When you're in this business, sometimes it feels like, you know, we have some tools in our toolbox that we can help, but we can't always fix everything.
However, another tradition that has stayed true in the state of Maine is not wanting to burden others. With all the assistance available, only 20 to 25% of people who are eligible for heating assistance actually pick up the phone and ask for help.
There's a lot of stigma around asking for help. I think it might be, you know, a cultural thing. Maybe it's, you know, as Americans, or I know it's especially strong in Maine where we like to take care of our own. We like to do things on our own. So when someone is in a situation where they need help, it can be really hard to ask.
With current inflation making life in general more expensive, people across the country who have never had to ask for this kind of help may need to do so this winter. Those on the other side of the phone certainly hope they choose to call.
Every year I get a handful of calls from people who say that, like, I'm going to get emotional, that they received help in the past and that they're now in a position where they can help someone else. And you're like, oh, man, like, you just get emotional on the phone with them.
Even in an untraditional time, nonprofits and neighbors alike are ready to keep up the custom of looking out for one another, just like it has always been here. I'm Vanessa Mashania reporting.
Winter presents unique struggles for those who are experiencing homelessness, especially in suburban areas.
Our stated mission is to prevent people from freezing to death.
Meet the community members who are taking it upon themselves to get people off the streets. You're watching The Race.